Hi OLMC students, my name's Adrian and this is a video about creating a poster in InDesign. Today I'm going to create an informational poster with some images, some text and a couple of graphic elements. Before we even crack InDesign open, the first thing I'm going to do is create a new folder for my project. I'm going to create mine on my desktop and I'm going to call it Poster Demo. Within this folder I'm going to create a subfolder which I will call Content. And I've got 6 photos here on my desktop that I will be considering using for this project. I'm going to put these in the content folder. The reason I'd like to do this is because if you put a photo in an InDesign document, you don't actually save that photo in the document. You create a link between where the photo is on your computer and your InDesign document. So if you put the photo in your InDesign document and then you move it around on your computer, you'll break the link between the two and it'll give you a bit of a hassle later on. So it's a good idea to just create a folder for your work with a subfolder for the content, and before you put anything in your InDesign document, to just put a copy of it in your content folder. I'm going to close that now and crack Adobe InDesign open. I'm going to hit Create New, and this brings me to my new document window. So in my new document window, I'm going to go up to Print and click View All Presets, and I'm going to select A3 to create A3 pages for my poster. If I create them A3, I can always scale them down when I print them to A4 if I have to. I just want to make sure I don't pick something like letter. Letter's an American paper format and it has, it's a bit squashier than ours, so if you create your document in letter, you'll end up with white space at the top and bottom of your document, which obviously you don't want. I'm going to change the unit of measurement to millimeters, so I actually know what these numbers mean, and yes, they are the measurements of an A3 piece of paper. I'm going to tick facing pages off. That's really for creating a book or booklet, and I don't need to do that right now. And once I've done that, I'm going to hit create. Okay, so now InDesign is open. Now, if your InDesign looks a little bit different to mine, it might be because you have a touchscreen laptop and by default InDesign opened in a different workspace. Mine is open in the Essentials workspace. If you've got a touchscreen laptop, it might have opened in the Touch workspace. If that's the case, I would just click up here where it says Touch from the drop-down menu, select Essentials. I'm going to reset my Essentials so that it looks exactly like what it will look like when you open it. Now, we've got a bunch of tabs on the right-hand side here. We've got some tools on the left-hand side, and we've got our paper in the center. I am going to get rid of some of these tools, which I don't really need. I would like to keep the Pages tools. We will be using that. With any of these tabs, you can just click and drag them off like this. I'm going to get rid of these two because I don't need CC Library or Properties. And I'll click this double arrow to contract this tab here. So at any time, if you need a tab to work with, you can go up to Window and find it. But before we begin, I might just grab out a few of the tabs that I know I'm going to be using. So I'm going to be working with text, so I'm going to head down to Type and Tables and select the Character tab, and I will move that underneath here. When you drag one tab towards another, if a blue little line appears underneath the first tab, that means they'll lock together and conveniently minimize like this. I'm also going to select from the Type and Tables the Paragraph tab, and I'll put that underneath the Character tab. I think I'm going to show you guys how to use text wrapping, so I will go to the Text Wrapping tab, crack that open and move it underneath Paragraph. I'll definitely be using the Align tab, and the Align is under Object and Layout. I'm also going to be using the Color tab and the Stroke tab, so I will move those two down here for later. Okay, before I do anything else, I'm going to save this document. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to call this document Poster Demo, and I'm going to save it to the folder that I created on my desktop called Poster Demo. I'm going to leave it as InDesign 2020 document and hit Save. I might create a poster out of several sheets of paper next to each other, just because I think one sheet of A3 paper is not a lot of space to work. So I'm going to go to my Pages tab, and here I can see the pages that I have. I'm going to create a couple of new pages by going down here to the Create New Page tab, and I'm going to hit that twice. I'm going to right click on any one of these pages, and I'm going to click Allow Document Pages to Shuffle so that it is unticked. Once I've done that, I can actually drag these pages so that they are next to each other. So I click on one page, drag it up towards the next one, and when this square bracket appears, I can release, and the two pages are next to each other. I'm going to do the same thing with this third page, and now I have a collection of 3 pages next to each other. I'm going to minimize the Pages tab, and that looks pretty good. So now I've got a bit of space I can work with. When I go to export my document, it will export the 3 sheets out separately, but all of the stuff that I put on them will all sort of line up when I go to print them. Okay, so the first thing we might want to do is add text. So I might add a title. The way I do that is by going to the type tool on the left, clicking and dragging out a text frame, and then I'm going to type poster. Right now the text is so small I can hardly see it. To zoom in, I hold Control on the keyboard and press plus. And if I'm using a 3-click mouse, which I would definitely recommend if you're using any Adobe software, if I hold spacebar on my desktop, I can click and drag to move around my work. So as you can see, poster is quite small. Now, in a word processor, you would double click and select the text to change its properties, but you don't need to do that in InDesign. In InDesign, all you need to do is grab this cursor tool and you can just select the text frame that you want to work with. So that means that you can change the properties of text in multiple frames at once. So I've selected this text frame now. I'm going to go to the characters panel and I'm going to select a different font, maybe Century Gothic and bold italic. I might change the size of the font. I can click these up and down arrows here, but I find it faster to select the actual number in the box and to press the up and down keys on the keyboard. I might also change the kerning, which is the spacing between the letters. I can do that by going to this VA tool right here and clicking my up or down arrows. Once again, a bit easier to just select the number and just press a couple of times. Okay, so I'm going to collapse my character panel and just explain a little bit about the text frame. So right now there's a frame around the text, right? And if you move this entire unit with the frame and the word in it around, you can see that a little pink line appears in the center of the page. And if I move it towards the middle of the page, a horizontal pink line appears. So those are your guidelines showing you that if you drop the text here, you will place this text frame exactly in the middle of the page. The problem is that the text frame itself may be in the middle of the page, but because the text is set to the left-hand side of the box, it's not in the center of the page. Now you could change that by going to the paragraph tab and center aligning the text, but you could also just right-click on the poster text, go to fitting, and fit frame to content. And that's going to fit the frame exactly around the word so that when I move the word to the exact center of the page, now it actually is in the exact center of this page. I'm going to move that right back up to the top left-hand corner where I would like it. Press Ctrl+ to zoom in a couple of times. So I'd like to put a second word after this poster. If I press space and then type in poster design, you can see that the word actually isn't visible because the frame is so small around the text that you can't see it. If I click and expand the frame outwards, you can see that word is there. You know that there is text missing because there's a red addition sign at the right-hand corner of the text. If I click on this red addition sign, I can link the text that is not visible to my cursor, and wherever I click, it's going to create a second text frame with that word in it. So I've pressed Ctrl+Z a couple of times to undo. What I might actually do is create a duplicate of this text and drag it across to the side. So I'm going to hold Alt on my keyboard, click on the text and drag to the right-hand side. The reason I'd like to do this is that I'd like a nice big space between the two words. I'm going to double click on this second word poster and type in design. I might duplicate this word again. I might expand this text frame out a little bit and I might type in by Adrian. And since this is a subtitle, I want to do something to differentiate it from the title of the poster. So I'm going to go to my characters panel and I'm going to select just italic instead of bold italic. So with your poster, if you have a large amount of text, it's a good idea to prepare it in a word processing program like Google Docs or Microsoft Word. The reason is that while InDesign does have a spelling and grammar check under Edit, Spelling, Check Spelling, it's nowhere near as good as a word processors. So I would type everything you need to type and then copy and paste it into a text frame in InDesign. InDesign is really good for the layout part, but it's not so great for the actual drafting part. So I'm going to click the text frame here. I'm going to right click and expand a big text frame out like this. And I am going to right click and fill it with placeholder text. It's just going to fill this text frame with some Latin writing so that I can use that as an example. I'm going to click on the cursor at the top left, click on the text, and I am going to change some properties of the text. So change the font to Arial maybe. I'll definitely increase the line spacing a bit. And I might go to my paragraph panel. Now, if you look at this text box, you can see that there are quite a few words that are hyphenated. If I'm in my paragraph panel, I can click this hyphenate box to untick it, and that means that the text will be formatted in such a way that the words do not need to be hyphenated at the end of the lines. I'm going to click justify with last line aligned to left. I might make my text just a little bit bigger again, and the spacing a little bit bigger. It is a poster, so you want the text to be nice and clear. Okay, so all looking good so far. Let's talk a little bit about inserting images into our document. There are quite a few ways to get an image into a document. You can go up to File and then Place, and you can select one of your images and it will attach to your cursor and you can place it in your document. I prefer to create a frame before I insert my image into my document by clicking on this rectangle frame tool. Now keep in mind that's not the same thing as the rectangle tool. The rectangle tool will add a rectangle with a potentially a colored inside to it. I just want to select the frame tool. I'm going to click and drag a frame out. If I want a perfect square, I can hold Shift at the same time. I could also, if I wanted to, click and hold here and select an ellipse frame. That would allow me to create a circular frame. If I hold Shift, it will make a perfect circle, but I don't need one of those. Now with this square frame that I've created selected, I'm going to go to File, Place, and select my image that I'm going to use. The image has been added inside the image frame, but you can't see it all. Now, if I click and expand the frame, you can see that more of the image becomes visible. Interestingly, the frame and the image are a little bit independent of each other. If you want to move the image within the frame, you can hover over the image and wait for a hand icon to appear. Then you can click on the image. A yellow bounding box will appear around the image and you can move the image within the frame. You can also quickly adjust the relationship between the image and the frame by right-clicking, going to Fitting, and then you have a number of options. Now these first two are the really important ones. Fill frame proportionally will fill this entire frame without distorting the proportions of the photo. So as you can see, it's cropped off a little bit of the photo on the left and the right there. That's where the yellow bounding box is outside of the blue box. You can also right-click on the image, go Fitting, and fit content proportionally, which will make the image as large as it can be within this frame without distorting its proportions. So you can see when I've done that, it's left a little bit of space above and below the image in the frame. You can right click on the image again, hit Fitting and hit Fit Frame to Content, and that will fit the frame neatly around the image that we have. So as I showed you before, you can expand the frame by clicking and dragging, but that won't change the image at the same time. If you want to increase the size of both the image and the frame, you hold Shift and Control on your keyboard and you click and drag outwards. If I zoom into my image, you can see that it looks a little bit pixelated, even though I know that the image is fairly good quality. That's just the display mode that InDesign is using. So it's doing that so that the software works very quickly. If you want to see what the image is going to look like when you are going to print it, you can go to View, Display Performance, and High Quality Display, and it will display the image at its full resolution. You can also insert multiple images at once. So if I click and hold, select the rectangle frame tool from the tool panel, I can press the up arrow on my keyboard to create more frames vertically. I can press the right arrow to create more frames horizontally. I might get rid of the horizontal frames by pressing the left arrow, and I might just create 3 frames like this that are all lined up. Now, the other way to quickly insert images is to grab your InDesign window, move it across, go into your folder with your content, select the images that you want to insert. You can then drag them over your InDesign document, and when there is a plus sign underneath the cursor on your InDesign document, you can release your mouse click. You can then go back up to your images, minimize those, maximize your InDesign screen, and you now have the 3 images attached to your cursor. You can cycle through them by pressing the up and down arrows on your keypad. I'm just going to insert them into these frames by clicking the images into the frames. Now you can quickly adjust all of these by dragging a selection box and selecting all of them at once, right-clicking, going to Fitting, and then Fill Frame Proportionally. And that will make the images as large as they can be within the frame. Okay, so you could add a border to this image. So you could select it, go to Stroke, and then increase the size of the stroke around the image. Right now it's created a border that is half over the image and half outside the image. If you click down here, you can see that you have different ways of aligning the stroke. I'm going to align the stroke to the outside of the image, and that way the border is around the outside of the image there. You can increase or decrease the thickness of the border by pressing your up and down keys here. I might change the color of my border by going to Color and clicking on this black square here. That's the stroke, so that's the outside. The other square here is the fill, so that's the inside, and we don't want anything there but the picture. I'm going to double click on that and I'm going to select a greeny blue color maybe, something like this. And I can make some minor adjustments to that color if I wish. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Now we can also text wrap around our image. So what does that mean? So let's just say we wanted this image to partially overlap this writing, but obviously we don't want the writing to cover up the image. What we can do is we can text wrap this image. So that's something we do to the image to create a bounding box around it so that writing can't overlap that area. So I'm going to select the image here and I am going to go to text wrap. I can select wrap around bounding box, and if this lock is adjusted here, I can just press these up and down arrows and you can see that a blue box is appearing around my image. That is the text wrapping box. So if I drag my image over the text, you can see that the text cannot go past this box here. So let's talk a little bit about the align panel because it's really, really useful. I'm going to click on align and I'm going to select one of these images. Let's say I'd like to increase the amount of space between the images. I can click and drag one of the images up, then I can select all three of the images at once and go to distribute objects vertical centers. This is going to create even spacing between all three of the images that I have chosen. If I wanted to put them in the exact center of the page, I could click on this box here and go align to page, and then if I select align objects horizontal centers, it's going to put these three images exactly in the center of the page. I might add a stroke to these images so it matches the other image that I have here. I'll select all three images, go to my stroke panel. Once again, I will align stroke to the outside of the image so that the stroke isn't actually covering up any of the image. And I might change the colors of the stroke really quickly. Maybe I'll make this one yellow, this one pink, and maybe I'll make this one a bright blue. Okay, so here we have a bit of text, some titles, but everything's a little bit jumbled up. So let's neaten everything up a little bit. I'm going to grab this image. I will align it to maybe the lower, maybe I'll put it over the two pages and I'll increase its size a little bit by holding Shift Control and dragging outwards. I might grab this text frame here and move it a little bit across to the right. I will copy this text frame by holding Alt, clicking on it, dragging it to this side of the work. I might make this smaller now. I might move these three images over to the right hand side and I will create new text frames that match these by holding Alt, clicking on this text frame, dragging it across, making it really, really small. And I'll hold Alt, click and drag, Alt, click and drag. Okay, after a bit of fiddling, everything looks pretty good. I might put a line underneath the heading over here. I'll click on the line tool and I will click and drag out a line. Now right now my line could be in any direction, but I want to make sure that it is locked to either 0, 45 or 90 degrees. To do that I'm going to hold Shift and then I'm going to release the left click on my mouse. I'm going to select my cursor again, select the line, and I'm going to go to my stroke tools. Here I can increase the thickness of the line if I want to. I might just leave it at 1 point and I can change the type of line. So I might make it a dashed line and I think that looks pretty good. I might even duplicate this line and move it around my work, so I'll hold Alt, click on the line, drag it over here, click it, drag it over here. I'd like to see what everything looks like without all the blue boxes around them though, so I can go up to View and Screen Mode and go to Preview to see what that's going to look like. And this will show you an exact preview of what my poster is going to look like. I think the one last thing I might show you guys is just how to add a colored background if you want to. So to do that, I'm going to add a separate layer and put the colored background on that layer underneath all the work that I've already done. So I'm going to head up to Window because I don't actually have my Layers panel open yet. And I'm going to click on Layers. I might just drag this Layers panel over to the other tabs over here. I'll close this Properties and CC one. And I will click on Layers now. Okay, so far everything is on layer 1. The way I know that is that if I click this eye off and on, I can see all of the things I've added disappear. I'm going to rename this layer. I'm going to double click on the layer 1 text and call this Content. Now I'm going to create a second layer. I'm going to click the Create New Layer icon. I'm going to lock my content layer by clicking this blank box and making this lock sign appear, and I'm going to drag the second layer underneath the content layer. I'm going to call this layer Background Color. Click OK. If my background color layer is highlighted in blue like this, that means that when I add an object, it's going to add it to this background color layer. I'm going to collapse this layers panel right now. I'm going to Control- to zoom out, and I'm going to select the rectangle tool. This time I'm going to add a colored rectangle behind everything that I have done so far. Okay, so I've added my rectangle, and the rectangle is highlighted in red. That's because it's on layer 2. So anything on layer 2, because it's got this red color here, will appear with a red border. So if I want to change the fill of the rectangle, that is the color that's inside the rectangle, I can go over here and double click on this blank square, and I can change it to any color that I want, and select OK. So far, I think everything looks really good, but the text and the lines don't stand out very well now. So I might go back into my layers panel, go to my content layer, lock my background layer so that I can't interfere with it, unlock my content layer so that I can start editing things in it, and collapse my layers panel again. Now I'm going to go back to my cursor up here and shift click on all of the text so that I can select it all at once. I'm going to go to my colors panel. I'm going to select the T to change the color of the text, and I'm going to click on the white, and that will change all of the text to white. I really like the look of this with the colors, the different stroke colors around the images, but I suppose if you wanted to change them, you could select them all at once by holding Shift and clicking on them, and then going to your color panel and then selecting white. And, you get a neat, if a little conservative design there. Once you're happy with everything, you can go File, Save, and you can then go to File, Export, and here you can export your pages. So if I leave it as JPEG, what I'm going to get is 3 separate pages as JPEGs that I can just send to the printer. I'm going to call these poster demo pages. I'm going to save them to the poster demo folder that I have created, hit Save, and here I get some options for my JPEG. I'm going to leave these pretty much as they are, with 300 ppi, which is high resolution, high quality, and I'll go to export. Then I'm going to minimize InDesign and go to my poster demo folder, and here I can see that I've got my 3 pages that I have created. Okay, and they look pretty good. I could send those to the printer now, and I think that would look fantastic. Okay, so I think that's everything that I would need to tell you for you to create your own fantastic informational poster in InDesign. I think the controls are really quite simple to learn, but you get a lot of creative freedom really quickly with InDesign. That's why it's kind of my favorite Adobe software. I hope you get to create amazing things with it, and thanks for watching this video.